Right now, as you listen to these words, someone across the world is having a conversation about you, not with their lips, but with their mind. They are speaking to you in the silence of their thoughts, and whether you know it or not, you are responding. This invisible dialogue is shaping your future together more powerfully than any words ever spoken aloud. The conversation I speak of is not mere daydreaming or wishful thinking. It is the most creative force in the universe, the very mechanism by which all relationships are formed, sustained, or dissolved. Every human being walks through life, engaged in constant inner talking, an endless stream of mental conversations with others. Most are unaware of this activity, yet it governs every aspect of their relationships with mathematical precision. When someone thinks of you, they are not merely remembering you, they are actively creating you in their consciousness, fashioning you according to their inner conversation about you. If they speak to you lovingly in their mind, seeing you as wonderful and desirable, they are literally molding the invisible substance of consciousness into that form. If they speak critically or dismissively, they create you in that image instead. But here lies the profound secret. You have the power to influence and even determine the nature of their inner conversation about you. This is not telepathy in the mystical sense that most understand it. This is far more practical and immediate. Through the specific use of your own inner talking, you can plant seeds in another's consciousness that will grow into their dominant thoughts and feelings about you. You can cause them to think of you with love, to miss you, to desire your presence, to speak of you favorably to others. This is not manipulation of their free will, but rather the awakening of what already exists in the deeper realm of consciousness, where all minds are one. The ancients understood this principle and built entire civilizations upon it. They knew that the invisible conversations of the mind were the true architects of the visible world. They recognized that before any word is spoken aloud, before any action is taken, there exists a conversation in consciousness that determines the nature of all that follows. This is why they spoke of thoughts as living things, of words as having power, of imagination as the workshop of creation. You live in a world of infinite conversations. Every person you have ever met continues to think about you from time to time, and in those moments of thinking, they are conversing with you. Your mother speaks to you in her mind. Your former lovers remember you in theirs. Your friends, your enemies, casual acquaintances all engage in inner dialogues where you play a part. The quality of these conversations determines the quality of your relationships with these people when you encounter them in the flesh. But most people are unconscious participants in this process. They allow their inner conversations to be random, chaotic, influenced by mood, circumstance, or the opinions of others. The fundamental ethical question is whether your desire serves love or serves selfishness. When your inner talking assumes a relationship that would bring joy, growth, and fulfillment to both parties, you are working in harmony with the deeper currents of consciousness. When your assumption springs from genuine love and seeks the highest good for all involved, the universe conspires to manifest your desire. However, when your inner talking is motivated by possessiveness, control, or the desire to have someone against their deeper nature, you create disharmony in consciousness that inevitably returns to you. The person you seek to influence may temporarily respond to your assumption, but the relationship will be unstable and ultimately destructive because it is not based on genuine compatibility and mutual benefit. The law of consciousness operates with perfect justice. What you send out in your inner talking returns to you multiplied. If you assume love, you receive love. If you assume from fear, manipulation, or desperation, you create circumstances characterized by these same qualities. The universe reflects back to you the exact nature of your inner conversations, not just their content, but their emotional tone and underlying motivation. History provides sobering examples of how these same principles have been used for manipulation and control rather than love and harmony. Political propagandists have long understood that by controlling the inner conversations of the masses, they can control behavior on a massive scale. They plant suggestions through repetitive messaging that becomes part of people's unconscious inner talking, influencing their thoughts, feelings, and actions without their awareness. Advertising operates on similar principles, seeking to implant desires and assumptions that will drive consumer behavior. The most effective advertisements do not merely describe products, but create inner conversations where people imagine themselves enjoying the benefits of ownership. These imagined conversations become part of their ongoing inner talking, eventually manifesting as purchasing decisions. The same techniques used in warfare propaganda rely on shaping inner conversations to create hatred, fear, and dehumanization of enemies. By controlling how people think and speak about others in the privacy of their minds, leaders can manipulate entire populations into supporting actions they would normally find abhorrent. Understanding these applications helps you recognize when others may be attempting to influence your own inner conversations. Protecting yourself from unwanted mental influence requires awareness of your own inner talking and conscious control over your assumptions. When you notice yourself engaging in inner conversations that do not serve your highest good, you can consciously redirect them. When you catch yourself adopting assumptions that have been planted by others through media, social pressure, or manipulation, you can choose different assumptions based on your own values and desires. The key to ethical practice is always asking whether your inner talking serves love or serves ego, whether it creates harmony or discord, whether it honors the freedom and dignity of all involved. When you use these principles to awaken love rather than create dependency, to inspire growth rather than enforce control, to serve the highest good rather than mere personal desire, you work in alignment with the fundamental creative forces of the universe. The modern world presents unique challenges and opportunities for the practice of conscious inner talking. The constant connectivity and information overload of digital life can fragment attention and make sustained inner conversation difficult. Social media creates artificial relationships that can interfere with natural telepathic connection between minds. The speed and superficiality of modern communication often prevents the deep feeling states necessary for effective inner talking. Yet the same technologies that create these challenges also provide new opportunities for those who understand consciousness. The global connectivity of the internet mirrors the fundamental connectivity of consciousness itself. The instantaneous transmission of information across vast distances reflects the timeless and spaceless nature of mental communication. Those who master inner talking in the digital age have access to influence and connection that would have been impossible in previous eras. Modern relationships often fail because people have lost touch with the art of sustained inner conversation. They communicate primarily through external means, texting, calling, posting, but rarely engage in the deep inner dialogue that creates true intimacy and connection. They wonder why their relationships feel shallow and temporary, never realizing that they have neglected the invisible conversations that are the foundation of all lasting The attention economy of modern life makes sustained focus on any single personal relationship increasingly difficult. People scatter their mental energy across dozens of superficial connections rather than cultivating deep inner relationships with a few significant others. Their inner talking becomes fragmented and weak, creating relationships that mirror this fragmentation. Contemporary research in quantum physics and consciousness studies provides scientific validation for principles that mystics have taught for millennia. Studies of quantum entanglement suggest that particles once connected remain connected regardless of distance, responding instantly to changes in each other's states. This mirrors the instant connection between minds that occurs through inner talking. Research into the placebo effect demonstrates the power of assumption and expectation to create physical changes in the body. Studies of prayer and distant healing show measurable effects of focused intention on people at great distances. Investigation into the collective unconscious reveals patterns of shared thoughts and images that suggest a deeper unity underlying apparent individual separation. Neuroscience has discovered mirror neurons that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing the same action, suggesting a neurological basis for empathy and mental connection. Studies of meditation and visualization show that imagined experiences create similar brain patterns to actual experiences, validating the reality of mental conversations and their power to influence consciousness. The most successful individuals in the modern world, particularly in fields requiring innovation and leadership, often display intuitive mastery of these principles. They naturally assume successful outcomes, engage in mental conversations that support their goals, and maintain emotional states that attract the people and circumstances they need. Many attribute their success to positive thinking or visualization, not realizing they are applying ancient laws of consciousness. Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and executives increasingly study meditation, consciousness, and manifestation techniques, recognizing that inner states of consciousness are the ultimate determinants of outer success. They understand that in a world where information and resources are widely available, consciousness becomes the critical differentiating factor. Those who can consciously direct their inner talking and assumptions gain enormous advantages in creating the reality they desire. The paradox of the modern age is that despite unprecedented technological power to connect and communicate, most people feel more isolated and disconnected than ever before. This isolation springs not from lack of external connection, but from neglect of the inner conversations that create true intimacy and understanding. The solution lies not in more technology, but in rediscovering the ancient art of conscious inner talking, of creating deep and lasting relationships through the proper use of imagination. In an assumption, the consciousness that can create love can equally create its opposite. The same inner talking that draws someone to you can drive them away. The same assumptions that generate attraction can produce revulsion. This is not a flaw in the system, but a feature of its perfect responsiveness to whatever state of consciousness you maintain. The power itself is neutral. Its effects depend entirely upon how you choose to use it. When you engage in inner talking, motivated by possessiveness rather than love, you create a different kind of influence entirely. The person may feel compelled to respond to you, but they will also feel an underlying sense of being trapped or controlled. This creates instability in the relationship because their deeper self recognizes the manipulation and rebels against it. They may be drawn to you temporarily, but they will eventually pull away with greater force than if you had never attempted to influence them at all. The most dangerous form of inner talking occurs when you assume from a state of anger, resentment, or desire for revenge. These emotions carry tremendous creative power, and when sustained in inner conversation, they can manifest as real harm to the other person. You may find yourself engaging in mental arguments with them, speaking to them harshly in your mind, assuming their failure or unhappiness. This creates a dark form of connection that can result in actual misfortune befalling them. The biblical warning about the power of the tongue applies even more strongly to the inner tongue of thought. When you curse someone in your heart, you create real effects in their life. When you engage in inner talking that assumes their failure, their loneliness, their regret, you are actively working to manifest these conditions. The person may begin to experience unexplained difficulties, relationship problems, or a general sense of unease without understanding that these experiences originate from your negative inner conversations about them. This is why the wise have always emphasized the importance of forgiveness and love, not merely as moral ideals, but as practical necessities for harmonious living. When you harbor resentment towards someone, you cannot help but engage in inner talking that assumes their misfortune. This creates a karmic connection that binds you to them in suffering rather than joy. The only way to break this connection is to consciously change your inner conversation about them, assuming their happiness and well-being instead of their suffering. The history of warfare and persecution is largely the history of collective inner talking gone wrong. When groups of people engage in shared assumptions about the evil or inferiority of others, they create collective thought forms that manifest as real oppression and violence. The propaganda techniques used to justify atrocities always begin by changing how people think and speak about their targets in the privacy of their own minds. Understanding this principle places tremendous responsibility upon you. Every person you think about, you are actively creating through your eye. Inner talking. If you engage in gossip, criticism, or negative assumptions about others, you are literally working to manifest those conditions in their lives. If you maintain loving, supportive inner conversations about others, you are contributing to their happiness and success, even when you are not physically present with them. The digital age has created unprecedented challenges for maintaining conscious control over your inner talking. Social media platforms are designed to capture and fragment your attention, making sustained inner conversation with any single person increasingly difficult. The constant stream of information, images, and opinions creates a kind of mental noise that drowns out the subtle inner voice through which deep connection occurs. The algorithms that govern social media feeds are specifically designed to provoke emotional responses, often negative ones, because these generate more engagement and profit. When you consume content that makes you angry, fearful, or envious, you begin to engage in inner talking that assumes these emotional states. This inner talking then manifests as increased conflict and negativity in your actual relationships. The phenomenon of online dating illustrates perfectly how digital communication can interfere with natural attraction and connection. People make decisions about potential partners based on superficial information and brief exchanges, never allowing the deeper processes of inner talking and assumption to develop. They swipe through hundreds of profiles, engaging in momentary inner conversations with countless strangers, but never sustaining the focused attention necessary to create genuine attraction with any single person. The speed and superficiality of digital communication also interferes with the development of feeling, which is essential for effective inner talking. Text messages and social media posts lack the emotional depth and nuance of face-to-face conversation or even sustained inner dialogue. People become accustomed to shallow exchanges that never touch the deeper levels of consciousness where true connection occurs. Yet for those who understand the principles of consciousness, the digital age also offers unprecedented opportunities. The global connectivity of the internet mirrors the fundamental interconnectedness of all minds. Someone who masters the art of inner talking can influence people across vast distances, creating connections and relationships that transcend physical limitations. The key is using technology as a tool while maintaining primary focus on the inner conversations that create reality. The most successful individuals in the digital age are those who have learned to maintain focused attention despite the constant distractions of modern life. They understand that their inner talking is their most valuable asset, and they guard it carefully against the fragmenting influences of digital media. They use technology to enhance their relationships rather than replace the deeper processes of consciousness that create genuine connection. The A. Acceleration of communication and information sharing in the modern world has created a corresponding acceleration in the manifestation of inner talking. Thoughts and assumptions that once might have taken months or years to manifest now often produce results within days or weeks. This means that both positive and negative inner talking create effects more quickly than ever before, making conscious control of your inner conversations more important than ever. The time has come for humanity to recognize consciousness as the fundamental creative force in the universe. The external manipulations and control systems that have dominated human society for millennia are becoming increasingly ineffective as more people awaken to their own creative power. The future belongs to those who understand that reality is created from within, through the conscious direction of inner talking and assumption. When you truly understand that your inner conversations are creating your reality, you can no longer remain unconscious about what you think and assume. Every thought becomes a creative act. Every assumption becomes a building block of your future experience. This awareness transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a conscious creator of your own destiny. The recognition of your creative power brings with it the recognition of your responsibility. You are not only creating your own reality, but contributing to the collective reality of humanity through your inner talking. When you assume love, harmony, and abundance, you are adding these qualities to the collective consciousness of the world. When you assume fear, conflict, and scarcity, you are contributing to the manifestation of these conditions in human experience. The great awakening that is occurring in our time is fundamentally an awakening to the creative power of consciousness. More people are beginning to understand that their thoughts and assumptions are not merely private mental events, but active forces shaping the world around them. This understanding is leading to a profound transformation in how people approach relationships, success, and happiness. Those who grasp this principle fully no longer seek to change external circumstances directly, but work instead on changing their inner conversations and assumptions. They understand that when they change their consciousness, their external world must change to match their new inner state. This is not wishful thinking, but the application of the most fundamental law of existence. The paradox of true power is that when you understand your ability to create any relationship or circumstance you desire, your desires themselves begin to transform. The desperate need to have a specific person love you dissolves when you realize that you can create love with anyone you choose. The frantic pursuit of external validation ends when you understand that you can assume any identity or status you desire. This transformation of desire is not a loss, but a liberation. Instead of being driven by compulsive needs and fears, you begin to create from a place of joy and abundance. Your relationships become expressions of your creative power rather than attempts to fill emotional voids. Your achievements become manifestations of your conscious choice rather than desperate attempts to prove your worth. When you fully accept your role as a conscious creator, you begin to understand that every person in your life is there by your own assumption. The people who love you are reflecting your assumption of being loved. The people who challenge you are reflecting assumptions you hold about struggle and conflict. The people who support you are reflecting your assumption of being supported. This understanding brings both tremendous freedom and tremendous responsibility. You are free because you are not at the mercy of other people's choices or external circumstances. You can create any relationship, any situation, any experience you desire through the proper use of your inner talking. You are responsible because you are the sole creator of your own experience, and you cannot blame others for what you have created through your own assumptions. The ultimate teaching is that you are not trying to attract a specific person into your life. You are awakening to the love that already exists in the depths of consciousness. You are not creating something new, but recognizing something eternal. The person you desire to love you already loves you in the realm of consciousness where all possibilities exist simultaneously. Your inner talking simply makes this love visible in your physical experience. When you understand this truth, the entire process becomes effortless. You are not forcing someone to love you against their will. You are not manipulating them into feeling something they do not naturally feel. You are simply awakening them to the love that already exists in their heart, helping them to recognize consciously what they already know unconsciously. This is the secret that transforms everything. Love is not something you must earn or win or struggle to obtain. Love is the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. When you assume the feeling of being loved, you are aligning yourself with the deepest truth of existence. The person you desire is simply the means through which this universal love expresses itself in your particular experience. The conversation that determines your destiny is not happening between you and another person. It is happening between you and the infinite consciousness that is your true self. When you learn to speak to this consciousness with love, with gratitude, with the assumption of your deepest desires fulfilled, you discover that you have always been the sole creator of your reality. The 24 hours you spend in conscious inner talking is not about attracting someone else, but about awakening to who you have always been. In the end, you will discover that the love you sought from another was always the love you were withholding from yourself. The acceptance you craved from outside was always the acceptance you needed to give to your own desires and dreams. The person you wanted to love you becomes the mirror in which you finally see your own infinite worth and beauty reflected back to you. This is the ultimate teaching. Nine, the final secret, the greatest mystery revealed. You are not separate from the one you love. You are not separate from the love you seek. You are not separate from the happiness you desire. In the realm of consciousness, you are already one with everything you have ever wanted. Your inner talking simply makes this invisible unity visible in your world of experience. They speak mentally to others without intent or purpose, creating confusion and conflict in their relationships. They wonder why certain people seem to avoid them, why others are drawn to them, why some relationships flourish while others wither, never realizing that the answer lies in the realm of their own inner talking. The wise person, however, learns to consciously direct their inner conversations. They understand that by changing what they say to others in the privacy of their own mind, they can change how others think, feel, and act toward them. This is not wishful thinking or positive thinking, but a precise technique based on the fundamental law that consciousness is the only reality and that all phenomena are modifications of consciousness. When you truly grasp this principle, you realize that attracting a specific person is not about changing them, but about changing your conversation with them in consciousness. You are not forcing them to love you against their will. You are awakening them to the love that already exists in the deeper dimensions of mind, where individual consciousness merges with universal consciousness. This knowledge has been carefully hidden from the masses throughout history, not out of malice, but because it represents power too great for the unprepared mind to wield responsibly. The rulers of ancient civilizations understood that those who controlled the inner conversations of the people controlled the people themselves. They built temples and established priesthoods, not merely for worship, but as schools for the development of consciousness, where the initiated learned to consciously direct their mental conversations to create the reality they desired. In the sacred texts of every great tradition, we find references to this principle, though often veiled in symbolic language. The ancient Hebrews spoke of the power of the word, understanding that the word was not merely sound, but the expression of consciousness itself. They knew that to speak meant to create, and that the most powerful speech was the silent conversation of the mind. Their teachings were filled with references to the creative power of thought, the importance of meditation, and the need to guard one's inner conversations as carefully as one guards their most precious possessions. The Egyptians built their entire understanding of the afterlife around the concept of inner conversation. They believed that the deceased continued to exist in a realm of pure consciousness, where thought was the only reality and inner talking the only activity. Their elaborate funeral preparations and texts were designed to ensure that the inner conversations of the dead would be harmonious and creative rather than chaotic and destructive. The Greeks, particularly the mystery schools, understood consciousness as the fundamental substance of reality. They taught that all apparent separation between minds was illusion, that at the deepest level all consciousness was one. This understanding led to their practices of what they called sympathetic magic, the art of influencing others through the conscious direction of one's own inner states and conversations. The early Christians, before their teachings were systematized and institutionalized, possessed a profound understanding of the creative power of consciousness. They spoke of faith as a way of thinking, of prayer as a form of inner conversation, and of love as the fundamental force that connects all minds. Their concept of the kingdom of heaven was not a place but a state of consciousness, a way of inner talking that creates heaven on earth. But as organized religion developed, these profound psychological and spiritual truths were gradually obscured. The emphasis shifted from the development of consciousness to the observance of external rituals and beliefs. The power of inner talking was either forgotten or deliberately suppressed, leaving humanity largely ignorant of its most fundamental creative ability. The psychological discoveries of the modern era have begun to rediscover what the ancients knew. Researchers have found evidence for what they call emotional contagion, the unconscious transmission of feelings between people. They have documented the power of expectation to influence behavior, the role of mental rehearsal in shaping performance, and the mysterious phenomenon of synchronicity, where internal states seem to create external circumstances. The study of the unconscious mind has revealed that most of our mental activity occurs below the threshold of awareness, in a realm where individual minds appear to merge and influence each other. This unconscious realm is the domain of inner talking, where our silent conversations with others create the invisible bonds that determine the nature of all our relationships. The understanding of consciousness as the foundation of reality has profound implications for how we approach relationships. When you realize that your experience of another person is actually your own consciousness taking the form of that person, you begin to understand that changing your inner conversation about them must necessarily change your experience of them. This is not theory, but practical fact, verifiable through careful observation and experimentation. Every relationship you have ever experienced was first created in consciousness through inner talking. Before you met your closest friend, you were already conversing with them in your mind, perhaps unknowingly. Before you fell in love, you were already speaking lovingly to someone in your imagination. Before you encountered your greatest enemy, you were already engaged in conflict with them in thought. The external meeting was simply the physical manifestation of what had already been created in the invisible realm of consciousness. The art of attracting a specific person, therefore, is the art of creating them in your consciousness through the deliberate use of inner talking. You begin by assuming that they already love you, that they already desire your presence, that they already think of you with warmth and affection. You engage in mental conversations with them from this assumption, speaking to them and hearing them speak to you as if the relationship you desire already exists. This is not make-believe or fantasy. This is the conscious use of the creative power of imagination to mold the invisible substance of consciousness into the form of your desire. When you consistently maintain these loving inner conversations, you are literally broadcasting a signal that the other person cannot help but receive. Their own unconscious mind begins to resonate with your signal, and they find themselves thinking of you more frequently, more favorably, more lovingly. The process works because consciousness is fundamentally one. Though we appear to be separate individuals, at the deepest level we are modifications of a single consciousness. Your inner talking about another person is not happening in isolation, but in the shared field of consciousness where all minds meet. When you change your inner conversation about someone, you are changing the conversation that is happening in this deeper realm. And this change must manifest in their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors toward you. Understanding this principle requires a fundamental shift in how you perceive relationships. Instead of seeing yourself as separate from others, trying to influence them from the outside, you begin to recognize that they exist within your own consciousness. Your experience of them is your own consciousness taking their form. To change your experience of them, you must change your consciousness of them. To change your consciousness of them, you must change your inner conversation about them. This is the secret that the wisest have always known. Relationships are not external circumstances that happen to you. They are internal states of consciousness that you create through the nature of your inner talking. When you assume loving conversations with others in your mind, you create loving relationships with them in your experience. When you engage in critical or fearful inner talking, you create relationships characterized by criticism and fear. The power to transform any relationship lies not in changing the other person, but in changing your conversation with them in consciousness. This is the most practical and effective approach to human relationships ever discovered, yet it remains hidden from most people because they are looking for solutions in the wrong place. They are trying to change external circumstances when the real work must be done in the realm of consciousness, in the invisible conversations of the mind. Thinking. I need to continue with the next section, which covers the anatomy of attraction. This should be around 200 to 400 words and should flow seamlessly from the previous section while maintaining Neville's voice and style. I should focus on the 3 pillars mentioned in the outline: assumption, feeling, and persistence, while keeping the language accessible and avoiding repetitive openings. The mechanism by which inner talking creates external relationships operates according to precise psychological laws. These laws govern the transmission of thoughts and feelings between minds, the formation of mutual attraction, and the manifestation of desired circumstances in the physical world. Understanding these laws gives you complete control over your relationships and allows you to consciously create the connections you desire. The first law is the law of assumption. Your inner talking must be based on the assumption that what you desire already exists. This is not hoping or wishing that it will happen, but speaking from the conviction that it has already happened. When you engage in inner conversation with another person, you must assume the feeling of already being loved by them, already being desired by them, already being in the relationship you seek with them. This assumption is not based on external evidence, but on the understanding that consciousness is the only reality. In consciousness, there is no time, no space, no separation between what is and what could be. All possibilities exist simultaneously in the realm of imagination. When you assume that someone loves you, you are not creating something new, but recognizing something that already exists in the deeper dimensions of consciousness. The quality of your assumption determines the quality of your manifestation. If you assume tentatively, with doubt and uncertainty, your inner talking will be weak and ineffective. If you assume boldly with complete conviction, your inner talking will be powerful and creative. The other person will feel compelled to respond to your assumption because consciousness recognizes no distinction between what is imagined and what is real. Most people fail in their relationships because they assume from their current circumstances rather than from their desired outcome. They speak to others in their mind based on how those people currently treat them rather than how they want to be treated. This perpetuates the very circumstances they wish to change. The person who is ignored continues to engage in inner conversations that assume being ignored. The person who is rejected continues to speak mentally from the assumption of rejection. The wise person does the opposite. They ignore present circumstances and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They speak to others in their mind as if those others already love them, respect them, desire their company. This assumption, maintained consistently, must manifest in changed behavior from others because consciousness is the only reality, and all external circumstances are merely reflections of internal states. The second law is the law of feeling. Assumption without feeling is powerless. Feeling without assumption is directionless. But assumption combined with feeling becomes the most creative force in the universe. When you engage in inner conversation with another person, you must feel the reality of that conversation. You must feel their love, their desire, their joy in being with you. This feeling validates your assumption and gives it the power to manifest. Feeling is the secret because feeling is the language of the subconscious mind. Your conscious mind may understand the logic of your assumption, but your subconscious mind responds only to feeling. When you feel the reality of being loved, your subconscious mind accepts this as fact and begins to create circumstances that match this feeling. It influences your behavior, your body language, your energy, your words, making you more attractive to others. But feeling also operates on a deeper level. It creates what researchers call emotional resonance between minds. When you genuinely feel loved by someone, that feeling radiates from you and influences their unconscious mind. They begin to feel loving toward you without knowing why. They find themselves thinking of you more often, speaking of you more favorably, seeking your company more eagerly. This is not manipulation, but natural law. Emotions are contagious because consciousness is one. When you change your emotional state regarding another person, you change the emotional field that exists between you. This change must manifest in their thoughts, feelings, and behavior toward you because they are part of the same consciousness that you are. The feeling must be natural and authentic, not forced or artificial. You cannot fake your way into someone's heart because the unconscious mind recognizes authenticity instantly. The feeling must arise from a genuine assumption of love, from a real recognition that this person cares for you deeply. When this feeling is present, it carries a conviction that is irresistible to the other person's unconscious mind. Many people struggle with feeling because they confuse it with emotion. Emotion is reactive, dependent on circumstances, changeable with moods. Feeling in the sense I speak of is a deep sense of knowing, a quiet confidence, a peaceful certainty. It is the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the satisfaction of already having what you desire. This feeling can be cultivated regardless of external circumstances because it is based on the truth that consciousness is the only reality. The third law is the law of persistence. Inner talking must be consistent and sustained to be effective. One conversation, however powerful, is rarely sufficient to create lasting change in a relationship. The mind requires repetition to accept new patterns of thought and feeling. The subconscious mind, which governs most of our behavior, changes its patterns slowly and only through consistent repetition. Most people fail in their attempts to influence others because they lack persistence. They engage in loving inner conversations for a few days, see no immediate results, and return to their old patterns of thinking and feeling. They do not understand that consciousness operates according to its own timing, not according to their impatience. The seed planted in consciousness must be allowed to grow through consistent nurturing. Persistence does not mean forcing or straining. It means maintaining your assumption and feeling naturally and easily, as a matter of course. It means speaking to others in your mind from love rather than fear, from confidence rather than doubt, from the assumption of being desired rather than the fear of being rejected. This becomes your natural way of inner talking, not something you have to remember to do. The key to persistence is understanding that you are not trying to change someone else, but changing your own consciousness. You are not working on them, but working on yourself. This removes the pressure and impatience that often sabotage the process. You are simply becoming the person who is naturally loved by them, who naturally attracts their attention and affection. True persistence is effortless because it is based on knowing rather than hoping. When you know that consciousness is the only reality, when you know that your assumption must manifest, when you know that your inner talking is creating your relationships, you persist naturally because you are not waiting for something to happen, but recognizing what is already happening. The effectiveness of these laws has been demonstrated throughout history by those who understood and applied them. Great lovers, influential leaders, successful people in all fields have intuitively used these principles to create the relationships and circumstances they desired. They may not have understood the psychological mechanisms involved, but they naturally assumed the feeling of their wishes fulfilled and persisted in that assumption until it manifested. The process is always the same, regardless of the specific person or situation involved. You begin by clearly defining the relationship you desire with this person. You then assume that this relationship already exists in consciousness. You feel the reality of this assumption, allowing yourself to experience the emotions of already having what you desire. You maintain this assumption and feeling consistently, regardless of external appearances or circumstances. The beauty of this process is that it works whether the other person is aware of it or not, whether they are physically present or absent, whether they currently love you or seem indifferent to you. This is because you are working in the realm of consciousness where all minds are one, where individual personality is simply a modification of universal consciousness, where love is the fundamental force that connects all beings. When you assume that someone loves you and feel the reality of that assumption, you are not imposing your will upon them, but awakening them to the love that already exists in the deeper dimensions of consciousness. You are helping them to discover what they already feel for you but may not yet realize. You are creating the conditions for them to express the love that exists in their heart but may be hidden by fear, doubt, or circumstance. This understanding transforms the entire approach to relationships from one of struggle and manipulation to one of recognition and awakening. You are not trying to make someone love you. You are recognizing that they already do love you in consciousness and creating the conditions for that love to manifest in their awareness and behavior. The application of these principles requires a specific structure and timing to be most effective. 24 hours represents a complete cycle of consciousness, a full rotation through all the states of mind that influence the subconscious. This period allows sufficient time for your assumption to penetrate deeply into your unconscious mind while being brief enough to maintain focus and intensity. Longer periods often result in wavering attention and diminished feeling, while shorter periods do not provide adequate time for the new pattern to establish itself. The 24-hour framework recognizes the natural rhythms of consciousness and works with them rather than against them. Your mind operates differently at various times of day, and each period offers unique opportunities for impressing your desired outcome upon the subconscious. Morning consciousness is fresh and receptive, midday consciousness is active and focused, evening consciousness is reflective and integrative, and night consciousness is deep and transformative. The morning hours provide the foundation for your entire day of inner talking. Upon awakening, before the concerns and distractions of daily life intrude, your mind is in its most impressionable state. This is when you establish the basic assumption that will govern all your inner conversations throughout the day. You begin by assuming the feeling of already being loved by this person, already being desired by them, already having the relationship you seek. The specific technique is to engage in a mental conversation with them as if you had awakened beside them, as if you were already in the intimate relationship you desire. You hear them speaking lovingly to you, expressing their affection, their desire for your presence, their joy in being with you. You respond with equal love and warmth, creating a dialogue that feels completely natural and real. This conversation should feel so vivid and authentic that for those few minutes, you completely forget that it is happening only in your imagination. The key is not to visualize or watch this conversation as if observing from outside, but to experience it from within, to feel yourself actually having this loving exchange. You hear their voice, you feel their presence, you experience the emotions of being loved and cherished. This creates the foundational feeling that will color all your inner talking throughout the day. During the midday hours, when your conscious mind is most active and alert, you reinforce your assumption through what appears to be casual inner conversation. As thoughts of this person arise naturally throughout your day, you ensure that these thoughts take the form of loving dialogue. Instead of wondering what they are doing or worrying about their feelings toward you, you engage them in mental conversation from the assumption of mutual love and desire. These midday conversations should feel spontaneous and natural, as if you were actually in touch with this person throughout the day. You might mentally share something interesting that happened to you, express appreciation for something they did, or simply enjoy a moment of loving connection. The crucial element is that all these inner conversations assume the reality of your desired relationship. The evening period offers an opportunity for reflection and integration. As you review the day, you consciously remember your various inner conversations with this person, allowing yourself to feel satisfaction and gratitude for the love you have experienced with them in consciousness. This reflection strengthens your assumption and prepares your mind for the crucial work that happens during sleep. The night hours, particularly the moments just before sleep, represent the most powerful time for impressing your desires upon the subconscious mind. As you drift towards sleep, your conscious mind releases its control, allowing your assumptions to sink deeply into the unconscious realm where they do their creative work. This is when you engage in the most intimate and detailed inner conversation with this person, assuming the complete fulfillment of your desire. The pre-sleep conversation should be brief but intensely felt. You might imagine them speaking to you with complete love and devotion, expressing how much they have missed you, how much they desire to be with you, how happy you make them. You allow yourself to feel the profound satisfaction of being completely loved and wanted by this person. You fall asleep in this feeling, allowing it to work upon your subconscious throughout the night. The most common mistake people make in applying this technique is allowing doubt and contrary thoughts to contaminate their inner conversations. They begin with the proper assumption, but then allow their rational mind to interject with reminders of current circumstances, fears about the other person's feelings, or doubts about the effectiveness of the process. These contrary thoughts cancel out the creative power of their assumption. Another frequent error is trying too hard, forcing the conversations instead of allowing them to flow naturally. When you strain or effort in your inner talking, you create tension that blocks the natural creative process. The conversation should feel easy and natural, as if you were simply remembering actual exchanges rather than creating new ones. Many people also make the mistake of focusing on the technique rather than the feeling. They become so concerned with doing it correctly that they lose sight of the essential element, which is feeling the reality of being loved. The technique is merely a vehicle for generating and sustaining this feeling. Without the feeling, the technique becomes empty ritual. The most dangerous error is using this process from a state of desperation or obsession. When you approach inner talking from need rather than assumption, from fear rather than love, you create the very circumstances you seek to avoid. Your inner conversations become tainted with anxiety and doubt, and these negative emotions are what get transmitted to the other person's unconscious mind. True mastery of this process requires recognizing the ethical dimensions of working with consciousness. The power to influence another person's thoughts and feelings carries profound moral responsibility. This responsibility extends beyond the immediate relationship to encompass the broader implications of using consciousness to shape reality according to personal desire,